Good evening, class. My name is Sydell Jones, and welcome to my graduate project. This graduate research project is on policy review through custom staffing for veterans with disabilities. My professor is Dr. Diane Sanchez at Edmonton University. Now, who are veterans with disabilities? According to the Department of Veteran Affairs, VA disability compensation is a benefit paid to a veteran because of injuries or diseases that happened while on active duty or were made worse by military service. It is also paid to certain veterans disabled from VA healthcare. Veterans really should be viewed and treated as American heroes. They also deserve to maintain and live a financially stable life once they return home. Combat skills do not always count as a skill or experience on a resume. This is why I have chosen to do my project on custom staffing human resource tactics for veterans with disabilities. The average benefit eligibility income goes based on your disability, whether the veteran is permanently, slightly, or fully unemployable due to their disability. This is why having resources available for the veteran should be a must. Custom staffing is a temporary service who has policies set in place to match the candidate for the best position that suits that individual. Custom staffing has policies on hiring veterans with disabilities, since they are an organization run on solely job functions of human resource management. Custom staffing's mission is to place workers at the right employer. When choosing custom staffing, they go through a 5-step selection process. What are the 5 steps of the selection process? First step, you send us a job description, job experience, desired qualifications, and the education required for the job. Step 2, we find available applicants who match the job description. Step 3, we evaluate the candidate's background, conduct testing, and verify references and work experience. Step 4, we set up an interview at their convenience. Step 5, after final review, a hiring decision is made. Custom Staffing Company is basically a whole human resource agency based on their job duties. There's also certain policies and procedures that should be followed for anyone with disabilities and definitely veterans with disabilities. However, as I went through doing my research, I could not find much on these policies or procedures. Custom staffing offers employment based on people's ability to perform each task. Custom staffing offers 3 types of placement. Temporary job opportunities. This is for people looking for short-term employment opportunities. Next is temp to hire. This will give an individual to show their strengths, skills, and attendance before selecting for a full position. And then there's direct hire assignment. This is exactly how it sounds, direct hire assignment. This means a person met all qualifications and skill set for the position. There is no direct policy for hiring veterans with disabilities. The policy will be held within the employer in which the individual will be placed. Even if you hire a person with disabilities, you can still treat them the same as any other individual. If they do not perform accordingly and cannot fully carry out the job requirement, an employer is well within your rights to terminate employment. So by looking at this information, it is straightforward how they select their candidates for the companies they employ individuals for. However, through the government and state agencies, there is still mandatory guidelines that must be followed while working with a veteran or an individual with a disability. Notice that custom staffing does give special consideration to their veterans. Recruiters can help veterans show off their skills. Staffing agencies can help veterans springboard into permanent work from temp jobs. Staffing agencies can help veterans find companies that put safety first. Now, these 3 areas can also be applied to any individual that goes into a temporary service as well. nearly 20% of the U.S. population. That's 56.7 million people. They all have a disability. They also thrive to want to work. This is why state and the legislation system is trying to work and changing a few things to give veteran and people with disabilities fighting chance in the workforce. I bring this up because these are the policies and guidelines that would have to be followed in any organization when working with people with disabilities. Even still, there is a high percentage of people with disabilities having difficulties finding and securing and retaining employment. More than a quarter of all working age people with disabilities are currently experiencing poverty. Work Matters. This is a framework for states on workforce development for people with disabilities. This represents the culmination of a year-long joint task force effort of state policymakers convened by the Council of State Governments to address barriers to employment and develop policy solutions to build a thriving workforce that is disability inclusive. Through the work of the task force, state legislatures, legislative staff, and state executive branch representatives explored the cause of these barriers and devised a policy that had options supporting increased employment access and opportunities for people with disabilities. State policymakers worked through 4 issue area subcommittees, such as career readiness and employability, hiring, retention, and re-entry, entrepreneurship, tax incentives and procurement, and transportation, technology, and other employment efforts. Each subcommittee was tasked with understanding the policy challenges of their issue area and identifying specific policy and program options to address these challenges. Special attention was paid by each subcommittee to exploring best practices and successful efforts currently being carried out in the state. Here are the 5 policy categories that the officials aim to cover. Laying the groundwork. This considers policy options that communicate state-level commitment to supporting employment access and opportunity for people with disabilities, including state as model employer, private sector capacity building, disability awareness, and interagency coordination efforts. Next is preparing for work. This considers policy options related to proceeding education, vocational training opportunities for youth, and young adults with disabilities, including inclusive career planning and work-based learning and family engagement. The third policy category is getting to and accessing work opportunities. This considers policies such as options ensuring that physical spaces, services, and technologies can facilitate equal access to work opportunities, including accessible information and communication technology and employment-related transportation. Then there's staying at work. This policy options has providing employers with tools to retain and advance workers when injury, illness, or a change in disability status occurs. Last is supporting self-employment and entrepreneurship. This considers policy options targeting increased access and opportunity for new and existing business owners with disabilities through entrepreneurship training and business incentives and supports. As I have said, there may not be many things stated through custom staffing per se, but there are things through the legislature branch that should be taken into consideration. In my literature review, I found that there are many government regulations that are set in place. Veterans face discrimination because of mental and physical disabilities. The ADA, American with Disabilities Act, is an organization that protects and aids veterans with disabilities from discrimination. ADA have been trying to knock down walls to make it easier for veterans to find employment. They have to outreach to employers so they will be educated on persons with disabilities. Being unemployable from disability. You must be a veteran. You must be unable to hold a job as a result of service-connected disability. This means maintaining substantially gainful employment, and the VA considers odd jobs as marginal employment, and they do not affect your eligibility. You must have either one disability that is rated at 60% or more, or multiple disabilities with one disability rated at 40% or higher, and a total rating of 70% or more. Above is the description you need to have before you can receive any kind of benefit from the VA. Even those who receive benefits are not financially set in the best of ways. This is where custom staffing would be able to offer their services to veterans and find jobs suited for them, or act as a resource center and be able to point them in the right direction and what can be done to help them in their current situation. There is a limitation on the research I have done because there is many temporary services available. They all have different procedure and policies on how they handle certain situations. These temporary services have the same task, and that is to find job placements. We are limiting scope to one temporary agency policy on veterans with disabilities. Here's an example of just a few that I found. Kelly Services, KNF&T, Randstad, DECO, Aerotech, Integrity Staffing Solutions, and there are so many more available in the U.S. alone. Here are some of the poverty levels, and they are continuously rising. This is because we are lacking in trade skills, training, and education. Then you will have to look at the benefits. They are becoming more and more scarce and more unavailable based on the criteria of the individual applying. In 2011, poverty levels were up to 10,890. In 2012, it increased at 11,170. In 2013, it increased again, 11,490. 2014, there was 11,670. 2015, there were 11,770. In 2016, there were 11,880. These results validation and verification by custom staffing. We want to identify research, scope, and objectives. Methodology flowchart. This shows the eras of the wars and the benefits given in those times. Here you can see the steps that were taken to obtain those benefits. The Veterans Employment Preference Points. This is an overview of how the law with veterans who are disabled or who served on active duty in the armed forces during certain specific time periods or in the military campaigns are entitled to preference over non-veterans, both in hiring from competitive lists of eligibles in retention during reductions in force. The goal of the veteran's preference is not to place a veteran in every vacant federal job. However, preference does provide a uniform method by which special consideration is given to qualified veterans seeking federal employment. Preference applies in hiring from civil service examiners, for most accepted service jobs, and when agencies make temporary appointments or use direct hire and delegate examining authorities from the U.S. Office of Personnel Management. General requirements for this preference is the soldier must have an honorable or general discharge if necessary. Military retirees at the rank of major, lieutenant commander, or higher are not eligible for preferences unless they are disabled veterans. Guard and reserve active duty for training purposes does not qualify for a preference. And when applying for federal jobs, Eligible veterans should claim preference on their application or resume. Applicants who are claiming the 10-point preference have 10 points that are added to the passing examination score. This is for a veteran who served any time or who has present service-connected disability and is receiving compensation disability, retirement benefits, or pension from the military or the Department of the Veteran Affairs. These individuals who received a Purple Heart qualify as disabled veterans also. An unmarried spouse of certain deceased veterans, a spouse of a veteran unable to work because of a service-connected disability, and a parent of a veteran who died in service and who is permanently and totally disabled. How it works. You meet the criteria for preference and achieve a score of 70 or higher either by a written examination or an evaluation of your experience in education. You will have 5 to 10 points added to your numerical ratings depending on the nature of the preference. 5-star preference during a war was served during a period of April 22, 1952 through July 1, 1955, or for more than 180 consecutive days other than for training, any part of which occurred after January 31, 1955 and before October 15, 1976, or during the Gulf War from August 2, 1990 through January 2, 1992, or for more than 180 consecutive days other than for training, any part of which occurred during the period beginning September 11, 2001 and ending on the date prescribed by presidential proclamation or by law as the last day of Operation Iraqi Freedom, or in a campaign or expedition for which a campaign medal has been authorized, any armed forces expeditionary medal or campaign. The methodology for classifying and analyzing research. Here are some examples of what some temp services and agencies can do for our disabled veterans. This is what I was hoping to find directly linked to custom staffing. Of course, with all the guidelines through the government, this should be established within custom staffing. They should just make it more accessible. The Bradley Morris difference. All of our recruiting and career guidance services are provided at no cost to our candidates. We are dedicated to providing jobs for retired military and military veterans. Bradley Morris has the largest client base in the industry. We are dedicated to delivering a positive candidate experience for transitioning and former military professionals. We do not require any of our candidates to sign exclusivity and handcuff agreements. Our seekers are free to use us as a resource along with other methods. Your partner for military and military spouse recruitment. We have hired nearly 10,000 veterans and military spouses every year, so recruiting military personnel and their spouse is not new to the Kelly service. Kelly has long recognized the unique value that veterans and military spouses bring to us and our customers. The military community presents a pool of diverse, highly skilled, and uniquely qualified professionals known for their leadership, dedication, adaptability, and discipline traits that are in high demand by employers everywhere. Specialized targeted recruitment. Kelly can help your company target the veteran and military spouse population by aligning your needs to specific military skills and experience. And through our vast network, we're located close to most majority military installations across the U.S., enabling local and national recruiting efforts on behalf of our clients. Our targeted recruiting strategy includes access to military experiences, skill translation tools, leading veteran and military spouse-centric job boards, plus niche social media networks focused on veterans and their spouses. It is partnerships that matter. We support ongoing relationships with all branches of the armed services, and we serve as an active member of several veteran employment organizations, including RecruitMilitary.com, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce's HiringOurHeroes.org, and Military Spouse Employment Partnership, among others. These are the two agencies that make it known that they are able to help veterans. Suggestions I would make. I suggest that since they act as a subcontractor, human resource representative, that they should also display and act as a resource center for veterans with disabilities to obtain benefits through programs for those unable to work. And also have trainings posted or pamphlets on resources and benefits. Veteran accesses to these resources and benefits, and online resources posted as well. Conclusion. Acting as a resource center for veterans that cannot find employment. Custom staffing should be more useful for our veterans with disabilities because they are one of the reasons we currently have a workforce. Should they receive some special treatment? Yes, absolutely. They should receive some special treatment. Should a disabled veteran have a struggle of poverty? Absolutely not. They should not have to worry if they are unemployable. And if they are employable, they should be able to see all the resources and benefits available for them in today's workforce. Consider what constitutes today as unemployable. Many things can count a person unemployable in today's workforce, but for a veteran with a disability, this can make living and sustaining a comfortable living almost impossible. You have to have evidence that the disability came from your time in service. And that is left up to you. If you are unable to gain employment. But these guidelines from the VA are as such. If you have at least one service-connected disability rated at 60% or more disabling, or 2 or more disconnected service disabilities with at least one rating of at least 40% or more disabling, and a combined rating of 70% or more, and you can't hold down a steady job that supports you financially, known as a substantially gainful employment, because of your service-connected disability. Odd jobs that are marginal employment does not count. Trainings and rehabilitation education for those disabled that become unemployable. Vocational rehabilitation, also known as VR, is a U.S. Department of Education funded program that provides these services in every state, territory, and many Indian nations. VR serves all disability groups. VR program is administered by the Department of Education's Rehabilitation Service Administration. The VR provides education and training opportunities to individuals with disabilities to maximize their employment, independence, integration into the community, and the competitive labor market. Almost 1 million individuals with disabilities received services from VR in 2016. VR provides training services such as vocational training and tuition assistance, career service such as vocational rehabilitation counseling, and job search assistance, and other services such as provision, rehabilitation technology to individuals with disabilities. Job placement. Nearly 57% of individuals with disabilities who received services from VR found employment. More than 64% of individuals who are blind or visually impaired found employment after receiving services from VR. Over 55,000 individuals under the age of 25 found employment after receiving VR. Next is educan.org This program is a vocational education for people with disabilities. The inclusive education is about fostering an education system that is accessible to learners with varying abilities and embraces everyone's participation in the learning process. Tomorrow is too long to wait for inclusion. Let's do it now. Project Search. This is a transition to work program. The goal for each program participant is competitive employment. To reach that goal, the program provides real-life work experience combined with training in employability and independent living skills to help young people with significant disabilities make successful transitions to productive adult life. The search model involves all extensive period of skills training and career exploration, innovative adaptations, long-term job coaching, and continuous feedback from teachers, skill trainers, and employers. As a result, at the completion of the training program, students with significant intellectual disabilities are employed in non-traditional, complex, and rewarding jobs. In addition, the presence of a search project program can bring about a long-term change in business culture that have far-reaching positive effects on attitudes about hiring people with disabilities and the range of jobs in which they can be successful. Next is Mass Options. You're linked to community services. Career training and employment services may include vocational training, supported employment, job placement services, and supports to pursue a certificate or degree. The training program also includes skills trainings to promote independent living. Home and community-based service waivers often include employment and pre-employment services and support. See Coordinated Care Programs for more information. Next is America's Virtual One Stop. This is a vocational rehabilitation and employment benefits program for veterans. The VA's Vocational Rehabilitation and Employment Services program provides work-related assistance to veterans with service-connected disabilities, as well as vocational counseling to active duty service members and veterans who have recently separated from active duty. Information about vocational counseling and special rehabilitation services is also available to dependents of veterans who meet certain program eligibility. In order to receive services or be entitled under Chapter 31, a veteran must be determined to have an employment handicap or a serious employment handicap. Employment services for this program offers a variety of services that are designed to help veterans succeed in the workforce. Some of these services include assistance in finding employment, job-seeking skills training, on-the-job training and apprentices, vocational training, and certification, diploma, or post-secondary training programs. And in some cases, a veteran requires additional education or training to become employable. A substance allowance is paid each month during training and is based on a rate of attendance, either full-time or part-time, and the number of dependents and the type of training. While those links were just some of the services and resources available that the veteran has, here are some other resources that are available that the employer has as well. Research and knowledge. I would say this would be a top priority in dealing with people with disabilities. Here you have it, Disability Solutions. They support and educate the workforce through disability awareness and inclusion training solutions. Disability Solutions provide training and development to help the workplace leaders and employees to integrate with and value people with disabilities. Services are rendered through online webinars, tailored for individual company needs, on-site workshops and lunch and learn training sessions for the entire team, and hiring manager training solutions designed to prepare the staff to recruit, interview, and hire people with disabilities in the workforce. Knowledge that temporary services should be acquainted with. The American Staffing Association provides the tools, information, staffing, and resources that a company needs to run their business effectively and in alignment with staffing industry practices. ASA Staffing Tech Center helps its members understand how they can leverage emerging technology innovation in a quickly changing landscape that has traditionally been characterized and fueled by human interaction. The Tech Center offers talent acquisition technology solutions that enhance overall acquisition, increase sales, streamline operations, and improve their long-term outlook for success. The American Staffing Association is also doing business with the federal government. Staffing firms across the country and in all sectors have opportunities to earn government contracts for temporary and contract staffing, as well as search and placement assignments. Conclusion showing implication to the 21st century workforce. My recommendations are that companies consider what constitutes today as unemployable, that there should be a resource center for the unemployable, that there should be trainings and rehabilitation education for those who are disabled to become employable. Then there's research and knowledge. And lastly, one equal opportunity policy for all organizations that are employing through the temporary service.